Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke saying how you doing? Welcome to 2025, and I hope everything is doing great. This video we're going to be doing here is going to be talking about some kind of after comments that have come up in discussion about people wanting to know more about how can you build brand new equipment from gear that's a couple of years old. How does this warranty surplus availability work to our advantage in doing certain things? So with that being said, I said, okay, cool, I'll do a video on this to help explain. It is kind of an underwater thing I do because there's a lot of stuff I do because my expectations for you as professionals is that you have a level of skill set, right? I mean, I can't give you everything. That's too much, in my opinion. What I can do is get you to a good place using your skill sets that you've got behind your belt to get you to the next level, right? But in this particular case, this is actually pretty unique. Not too many people know how to do it, I think, because really it just came natural to me. And that was knowing how the manufacturing industry works for building servers and PCs and IT related gear. I just happen to know that there are warehouses and warehouses and warehouses and warehouses filled full of gear that is there. It's brand spanking new. It's there to support warranty coverage, and it never gets touched. It's exchanged for warranty-based replacements. And at a certain point in time, when that industry standard, that being a server or a PC or whatever that item may be, it goes past its warranty window, usually a 3 to 5 year window. In some cases it's 1 to 2 years, like a router or a switch or something like that. They begin to, being the manufacturers, start to empty their warehouses of this equipment, put it into what's called clearance houses, and the clearance houses will work with different organizations, companies, and so on that will surplus this gear out quietly, because they don't want to make a stink about it, and they can sometimes show up on eBay. Sometimes they show up in other places, such as server clearance houses, things like that. So what does this basically mean to you and me? Well, if we don't pay attention to the warranty, just step that aside for a second, and we look at the fact this equipment's never been used, that's good news, because a fan is a fan is a fan is a fan, right? A fan that's been running for 5 straight years is not a fan I really want to use. But a fan that is brand new and it's been waiting to be replaced, and it's a CPU fan and so on and so on, I'll be glad to buy that at reduced cost, bring it to the fence, build a brand new chassis with all these warranty components, and these surplus components will allow me to have a brand new server, may it be based on the physical drives themselves, or they may be based on the brackets and the cables and the pairings and the specialized interfaces and the proprietaries, whatever, of each case part and so on. So with that being said, I can buy brand new SAS controllers, never used ever, but these are warranty replacement controllers that are just in surplus, waiting to swap out when one goes bad. And yes, believe it or not, CPUs, that's right, CPUs are definitely in the same ballpark. Intel's got to do it, AMD's got to do it, they all got to do it. So what ends up happening is a few years after the introduction of that product and after the warranties are done, they've got to clear their warehouses to get ready for the new whatever that's coming down the pipe. So this is your secret sauce. Now, how do you do this and how do you do it right? So I'm not going to go through all the different vendors and stuff like that. You're going to have to do some research on your own. But I'm going to use Supermicro as an example here. So the very first thing you want to do is to know what you're looking at so that you can start sourcing out the most important thing in the equation, and that is the parts list. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so basically what we've got here is we're at Supermicro's website, and I have an interest in a 21.3 Alpha Charlie hyphen Romeo 1 Kilo 23 LPB. That's Lambda Papa Bravo. And I have a desire to know about this machine. Now, in this particular configuration, I want to be able to get a viewpoint of this chassis. And as you can see, it's a fairly simplistic based chassis that uses an ATX style motherboard with a dual PDU setup for power supplies. And if you look over here, you can see the 3 fans it's using for air circulation, and it's got 2.5-inch discs. You know, this is a good little functional. You got room for media interfaces or bay interface for media. And if you look at the back of it, it's an ATX chassis. So with that being the case, we're basically looking at a fairly functional unit, and then we can go through the specs here, as you can see, but this isn't the secret you're looking for. What you want to do is, this chassis is going to expire soon, which means they're no longer going to offer it for sale. And that means that it's end of sale life. It is a highly compatible, standardized 2U chassis, so it allows you to basically take an ATX style motherboard, very much like this motherboard, and you're going to have to use low profile I/O cards for input output. And of course, you can't have a giant heatsink like this guy is. You'd have what's called a low profile heatsink, but this standard motherboard, as you can see here, would fit fine inside that chassis. This is confirmed by the fact that you have what's called a punch-out plate right here that comes with the actual motherboard. And a punch-out plate basically is the back part of the ATX motherboard that goes into a case housing that's designed specifically to outbound the ports that are going to be required. So like I said, you can basically put any motherboard into this chassis. Now I'm starting with a fairly simple standard here, a very easy chassis. You guys would be comfortable with this from intermediary to tier advanced. There are other chassis that Supermicro has that are very sophisticated chassis, and they are designed in such a way to mimic that of Dell, HP, and so on. So, but down here, as you can see, are the specifications of what you're looking for. You know, Supermicro is pretty good as a baseline for when you want to steal parts and pieces. The other key thing you need to understand is other companies like EMC, Dell, and so on will sometimes white box Supermicro's chassis into their own brands to supplement their sale models. So it's a great company to start with. Now, what you really want to find is your parts list. What do I mean by parts list? Well, let me show you down here. You see it here? It says components, and if I open that up, I all of a sudden, look at that, I have parts. I have the ID numbers, the back planes, bridgings, cables, different options for drives, and bevels and trays, and of course I have design templates for these formats, the classifications of motherboards. Now remember, all of this stuff is sitting out there in warranty warehouses. So you've got to get these part numbers. Dell does the same thing, so does HP. Everyone has to do this legally, and it's very important for them because they correlate to the relationship of manufacturing versus distribution, so they've got to make sure that they clearly identify all the part numbers and the roles and responsibilities of those parts, the core components such as the motherboards, as you can see here, and the different classes of motherboards that are very easy. Now this, again, is a very openly compatible chassis. Probably not the greatest one I should have picked, but you know what, actually, now that I look at it, I decide, you know, this is still a good option. But you can go up here to products, and you can go into the dual platform environments, and as you can see, they can get really sophisticated very quickly. But the cool thing that you have to remember is, at this stage, I want to work with something that didn't cost me much money. So what does this mean to you and me? We're broke, right? I don't raise money to do the stuff I do. It comes out of my own pocket. That keeps me at 100% agnostic. Nobody can touch me with a 10-foot pole. If I do like something, it's because it's earned that value. And in this case, I picked specifically a chassis, which I put in a previous video. If you want to look it up, please do. And it's a complicated chassis. You know, it has what's called a zigzag motherboard. It's not a typical rectangular motherboard like an ATX motherboard is. It's sophisticated, but it's sophisticated in the sense of that it's a hybrid between a server motherboard and a workstation motherboard. So I'm able to cross the divide and get special features that are normally inherited of a workstation that servers don't usually get the advantage of. Working in the hybrid workstation dual processor environment transitions that gap. So what I did basically is I picked out my chassis and I got the core components, the motherboard, which is, like I said, it's in the shape of a T, basically. And caddies and fans and my power supply dual power configuration set up. And I was lucky to be able to get some of those components from the warranty warehouses intact. So that meant there was some quality of assurances on that for QA. And that's great because I don't have to vet the actual core board and its bus interface to the SAS interface. It's got a 12 gig SAS bridging, but I went out and got another component, another warehouse clearance item, and I grabbed this guy because he's a little bit better. He's got the caching on board right there, and he's quite capable, and I can do a lot more with it. But you know, it's a motherboard that cost me, with the chassis, with the caddy housing, 12 caddies, dual power supplies, the housing set for the dual power supply setup, for a whopping, ready, 170 bucks. That's it, 170 bucks. Now, I have to get processors because it doesn't have any. That $6. SAS 12 gig, $17. Molex pairing cables, so I can really take advantage of the GPU strategy I want to do. Pennies on the dollar. And all those parts and pieces you saw there, which I do need to get. I have to get a riser bridge card for the left channel, and I need to get the riser bridge card for the secondary channel on the left, the right and the left set. Those will be able to give me my PCIe's. They're PCIe 3s, and they're set in compatibility modes from 1, 2, and 3. You won't find very many Xeons with PCI 4s yet, but 3s are very good. Then I got myself an 8 bus NVMe. I only needed like a 400 or 500 gig NVMe, so that cost me $10. See what I'm doing here? So when I did the math on all of this, the only thing that even came close to being like the chassis at $170 was $85 for me to get 128 gigs of RAM and basically 4 sticks. You know, I'm trying to keep the volume in place because this is going to be added to my high CPU configuration. I've got it version 3 2600 processor stacks. That's what these guys are right here, and these guys are 22s, so that will support. So between these two, I got 22 cores or 44 hypercores, and it's going to give me my processing power. I'm going to have the RAM in the background for what I want to do. I got the NVMe on the front end. I got the NFS TrueNAS platform from my virtualization disk capacity, and I've got everything I need, and I did it at a whoppingly super cheap value. So how did I get the value? Well, let me show you. Okay, so we're back to that website where we had a particular chassis that we were looking at. If you go up here, you'll see that chassis real quick. There it is, as you can see. And that chassis has a parts list. So I'm going to pick, what the heck, let's pick this guy right here. Let's have some fun with it. The 8150G series part component. And the very first thing you can do is you can go out and you can go out to your favorite haunt, your place you'd like to go, and see if you can find the the component you're looking for here in regards to eBay or Etsy, or you can also look at Alibaba and F-Cord and so on. But I don't. What I do is, the very first thing I do is I want to verify the component first. This is my recommendation for you. Understand, if you don't verify it visibly, like as you can see here, it's actually a CD-ROM case housing. I check the part number, and is that part number right? I go back and say, well, it's 81506. This one is coming up as 81506, and it does appear to look like a DVD. Now, I want to, let's see here, I want to switch to image to confirm what this is supposed to look like, because it's supposed to be unique, right? So let's take a look at what uniqueness is supposed to look like. So here, as you can see, it's a very thin profile, and it is matching the item number reference. So now that I know that, I know I won't make the mistake that many of others have done. So when I search on this part piece, I have discovered that eBay does not have this part. Let's rescan that and make sure it's accurate. And I confirm that. Now you need two different sources to confirm your parts. I know it's a little tasking, but in actuality it's not, because this helps you from spending money the wrong way, and you don't want to do that. So what we want to do next is, let's pick another one. Let's take a look at the MPC 22-00007-01, which is a black USB COM port tray for the SCU series chassis. So we'll go over here to here, and we're going to change this guy. Go ahead and get that going, and we're going to take a look. Okay, so this is different, and it's supposed to be a COM tray bridge. So if I look at this guy right here, I'm getting confirmation on that type of connection. There's the 9-pin, there's the USB ports right there, and there is, this is definitely confirming what I was seeing in the manufacturing for the front USB. Now there's also something called the bevel, which is also a piece of plastic, I think. So let's copy that, and then we'll go back over here and do this again. And there's the bevel. It is literally just a piece of plastic. And so getting definite confirmation on that, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So with that being the case, then and only then should you go to your provider. In this case, I'm using eBay. I have many. I don't just use one. Believe it or not, Amazon is also pretty good at this too. So if you've got a Prime account, that does help. And look, there it is. Now the thing is, this is a bevel. Okay, so this bevel, or the front bezel of the chassis, is something that can run somewhere around 30 or 40 bucks. And of course, you'll notice in some of these cases, they have stupid amounts of free shipping. I'm sorry, not free shipping. Like here's $33 with $28 shipping. Right. But the 44 is probably the one you'd go with, because that one does come with free shipping. So with that being the case, you're also going to notice in some of the more sophisticated chassis, like the Dell XD740 chassis, that they'll have additional I/O bridging cards. For instance, as an example, here's one right here, and it's a part manufacturer, and you can get these also. This is an NVMe drive housing, but they'll make a recommendation for you to get these part numbers and so on. Be careful about that, because sometimes LSI will slip in the part number match to their open product, which may or may not be compatible. So you got to do a little bit more digging just to make sure that you don't run into compatibility issues. So The only thing that can screw you in this process is not doing the part number research. That's it in a nutshell. Now, let's talk about the next component. When I buy these parts and pieces, what do I do and when do I do it so I have some type of protective coverage? Well, that's a good question. And there are two ways you can do that. Through the vendor you're buying through, who would most likely offer you what is known as an all-state coverage plan. So for a couple of extra dollars, they'll give you a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year coverage plan that covers the value of the item if it goes bad. Now, that's a risk that Allstate does with the manufacturer to say, hey, look, you're the seller or you're the manufacturer or you or whoever is handling or produces this product to make it available for sale, that you're offering a quality product. So most of the time when I do choose to use Allstate, it's fine. I rarely ever actually have to use it. You know, I'll say it died in a month and I'll put it in and I'll put in the paperwork and I get the exact amount of money or the item replacement sent to me again, which I would prefer to have the item. I don't want the money back. I just want another one of these parts because it was hard to find in the first place initially. Now, the other option is a independent coverage plan, which you would register the product and pay a fee for it. But when do you do it? I mean, come on, let's be honest. You know, yeah, it's a Xeon processor, but it cost me $6. I did put a warranty on this for $1 for a total of $7, right? Okay, I'll cover the CPU, but I didn't have to. I did the same for this guy. And I wanted to and I needed to because SAS controllers can be sold in such a way so that it is junk. But here's another example of a different kind of situation. A component, right? Cable set component. It's cost me maybe $6 or $5 or $3 with shipping or something like that. I don't want to cover that. I don't need to. So, you know, I might cover a motherboard, a processor, maybe the memory, maybe a SAS card, but 85% of the rest of the chassis, including the caddy housings. Let me show you what a caddy housing looks like. Sorry about that. I hadn't had my props right. A caddy housing is just a piece of plastic. It might have a small little bit of clear plastic routed through it so you can have an LED pop up on the front, which is right here, and sometimes that breaks. But if it does break, that's okay. And other things like filler controllers, you know, designed to air block. Now this is not just the only version. Let me show you another version. You know, so air blocks, they're designed to re-regulate the airflow. Do you want to cover these on insurance? Nah, I don't. Now you can put these guys inside the caddies for 3.5 or 5.25. I'm sorry, 3.5s or 2.5s. But the thing about these guys, these fillers, if they're broken, no big deal. I don't need to cover them. You know, bridge gaps, cabling, sets, SAS cables. You know, this stuff, I'm not going to waste the money. It's not worth it. What matters is the RAM, the CPU, the motherboard, and so on. And I've only used it 3 times in the past 7 years that it's become available. One was a brand new XD 730 motherboard and an XD 740 motherboard. They were damaged on the corner and they broke the wafer on the board, so it shorted out. And I got new motherboards, and it was great. It worked great. So the key thing here is you can build a brand new chassis, and I've just shown you how you can do this. Your sources, you'll evolve over time. eBay is a great start. Thing about eBay is you kind of can get like 70% of the parts. Like you can buy the chassis. It's empty, but it's got all the peripherals on it, right? The metals, the gauges, the cabbages, and stuff like that. But it has no motherboard. Okay, that's cool. I can, I can get the motherboard and I get the processors and the RAM and the PCIe daughter boards and all that, and then boom, I got myself a machine. Or you can say you're a Sun Microsystem fanatic and you love Fire, what is it? I forgot the name of it. It's been so long. The Fire series chassis, and so that might be a little harder. It could be in regards to building a backplane set for a network switching setup. Again, you might have to use F cable or bridge or cables to go, but you're going to find the parts. And they're old, so that means in regards like GBICs, bridge overs, Cat5 bridgings, fiber bridgings, all of that stuff. Once it goes out of warranty, they got to get it out of their warehouse, and that's where you save the money. Well, this is Brad Dyke. I'm going to sign off. Try to keep this under 30 minutes. I hope this is valuable to you. I do recommend, if you can, if you fast forward through this, you've missed some things. Might want to best go back and start over and play this through, because there is a process to this. And I'm hoping that you'll be able to cover all of those processes, so I don't have to do this video twice, which I've done a couple of twice. But anyways, I'm going to let you guys go. God bless and have a great week. Take care.